Welcome to Inside the Exchange, where we discuss entrepreneurship, business development, and how your business can succeed here in San Joaquin County. Click the link below to learn more. Now let's get into the episode. So welcome to the Exchange, Megan Shapiro. I'm kind of giggling because I had to wear this because of you, and then not thinking that you were probably going to wear the same because that's your MO, that's your vibe, that's everything. But I am totally just here for the ride because I think you're phenomenal. I have been so impressed and pleased by the first day I met you, for the first conversation that I've ever had with you, your instruction, your capability of applying your knowledge to us women in construction and just in general in construction, and what you can teach to our members, what you've taught to me is just, it's priceless. So I am so excited to sit here with you today on Inside the Exchange on our podcast. This is number 4.
Ooh.
So I'm just thrilled. So what brings you here to see with us at Juliet Winery?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. There's nobody I would rather twin with than you. I think it's worth acknowledging that from the first moment, I don't know if you feel this way, we haven't actually had this conversation before, but from the first moment that we met, I felt like we were twinsies, like we were two sides of the same coin. So for us to literally be twinsies now doesn't surprise me one little bit because I think we've got a lot in common. So thank you for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you today.
Yes, we can channel each other's energy to the max. Our husbands would probably be overwhelmed if they were with us together at the same place in the same room. But, you know, that's why you live up there and I live down here. We can just bring the energy in between.
Yes.
So with my first meeting with you and being able to learn so much from you and then bring that to the exchange, how are you feeling this is benefiting our members, or how we can help get the word out with your knowledge and capabilities so they could better their commitment to their contracts, to their companies, to feel strong. I know I can use a personal reference, which is my husband, who is so confident, and I've seen his confidence in the last year grown because of you. And he refers back to your classes, and he's an amazing spokesperson for you. Like if your ears are ever burning, it's Josh Hurles. And he's just so thankful that he had that ability to take your classes. He's taking the next set and he's taking the next set again. So I mean, what could we do more to drive our members to get into your classroom and learn what you have to offer?
Well, first of all, I love that. And Josh is great. He's amazing. He's like the star student every time, right? Like he's always like diligently listening, taking notes, actively engaged, asking questions, answering questions. Like Josh is wonderful. So I'm so glad to hear that it has had an actual tangible benefit to him and his business. That's the point, right?
Yes.
But maybe back up just a little bit because I don't know if your viewers actually know who I am or why they even care about even listening to you or what even my classes are about. So maybe I'll just start there.
Cheers to that.
I know, right? Let's start there with like a brief intro.
Okay.
So Megan Shapiro, I am a full-time construction attorney up in Sacramento. That is, of course, how we met. I've been actively involved within the construction industry and community, the local Northern California construction community for probably 15 years now. At the firm, I represent construction companies of all kinds, some owners, some GCs, some design professionals. But as I always say, it's not necessarily a popular opinion, but my heart belongs to the trades. That was where I really got my start representing the trades. And although I've diversified and I have found ways to love the GCs, to love the owners, to love the design professionals, my heart will always be somewhat with the trades. Partially because my husband, that is how I met him. He was on the trade contractor side when we met, but he joined the dark side and became a GC at the beginning of last year. So that's helped me find a little bit more empathy for the general contractors as well. But what I realized after litigating mostly for construction companies over the last 15 years, a variety of claims, right? Everything from construction defect claims to delay claims to change order disputes. If it comes up in construction, I've probably handled it. But on the litigation side, right? So like when it becomes the worst possible case scenario. Mm-hmm. And after doing that for like 15 years, I realized like a lot of these problems are not only the same issues over and over and over again.
They can be eliminated in some kind of process beforehand.
Right. If we can be more proactive in our beginning phases of these contracts, starting with the bid and contract review process, then we can avoid a lot of these disputes. And I know from my own experience with my own construction clients, a lot of times the hesitation isn't in, I don't want to run the contract by the lawyer. it's in the cost, right? It's always, how much is it going to cost me to have the lawyer look at the contract, which is a totally valid concern and consideration. So I realized that the best way to actually get to the people that need the help the most is to teach them how to review, redline, and negotiate these contracts the same way that I do it. My tagline is do it like a lawyer. The idea being, I want to empower you with the same tools, strategies, and techniques that I use when I'm doing it as your lawyer. So that way you don't need to call me for every single run-of-the-mill contract.
And I think the confidence level would go along with it as well.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Give them that confidence.
You're kind of giving them a peace of mind back. You might have to back charge them because you're giving them, because again, I always say, owning a company with my husband and being entrepreneurs, what's the cost? Because you don't always value your cost, your how much per hour, because you don't look at it like that.
Yeah.
But you can never give back that sense of confidence or sense of knowledge or sense of peace that you've made the right decision, which is so priceless. And I'm sure so many business owners or companies are so thankful for that you're able to apply that, or they're able to apply it because of your teachings.
Yeah, absolutely. That is definitely one of the most common sources of feedback that I get from them, right? Is like, they love having that confidence. It helps them sleep better at night. And a lot of times they don't necessarily know a good construction attorney, right? Attorneys don't necessarily always advertise what they do. And so they might have an attorney that they know or somebody that's recommended to them, but they don't know that that person really knows construction. And so just knowing that they have me as a resource for the extra complex, or if something does come up that they have a question about, or they do need to get an actual attorney to weigh in on something, it also is like paired with the confidence that they have to do it themselves the way that I do it anyway. Plus, knowing they can call me, pick up the phone, shoot me an email, send me a text, and ask me that quick question if they just do need that sort of like quick gut check to make sure that what they're thinking is the right thing.
And that should eliminate over time, depending on certain contracts. But if they feel that they're asking the same question over again, then maybe it's just an internal thing. You just have to become confident within yourself.
Absolutely.
But having your, the reassurance in the long run is probably just so beneficial. I know it's remarkable. And I can speak from experience and seeing that confidence, and, it's overwhelming, typical business owner, especially I feel like with San Joaquin County, we're a little bit more mom and pop. So typically these people have worked for somebody else and seen their drive and seen their ability, and they want to go out on their own, but they don't necessarily have that ability to run a business. And when you go into those contracts, those are your business. And you almost give the GC or whoever you're bidding to the confidence that they're securing you, and that's why there is so many legal aspects to it, like a lien, some older contractors just want to shake on a deal, we just don't go that route anymore. And it seems scary because you are bringing in this language and you're not fully confident on it. And you give them that capability of coming to the table and feeling like they have a spot at that table.
Yes. And that's really what drives me, right? Is like, I love that moment where I can see in their eyes. Josh is a great example, right? Like, because, he has no poker face, right? Like when something hits, everybody in the room knows, like, oh, he got it, right? And so that's what I love, is like getting to see that moment where it all starts to click together, and then they really feel like the contract isn't something that's intimidating and scary for them in their business. It's the tool that it's designed to be, and now they know how to leverage it. Yeah,
I mean, it kind of goes true and true with doing the women in construction, going up to the big conference with SRBX and CIF. It's just, when you have to put something in actual paper, like, why did you go to that event? What are you gaining from it? It's just being in a room and hearing stories and hearing solutions, and, because you didn't even realize it was a problem. You didn't realize you were banging your head against the wall on that problem. And then you hear this intellect or this experience and you're like, oh, and you do walk out, maybe it's sometimes a little overwhelmed, but you really feel like, okay, I'm not alone. And I feel like I have that piece of confidence, and now I can strive harder and pursue that. And that, kind of brings to, I know we want to still talk about us and, your classes, but our women in construction, bringing that women in construction to San Joaquin County, being able to have a group of powerhouse women. I'm still impressed with our first committee meeting. I think there was like 30 something women showed up at 4:00 in the afternoon, and they were like, what are we doing? What do we got? Like, how are we going to tackle this? And I was like, oh my gosh, you build it and they will come. Like, this is amazing. Like, what do I do? You guys are overwhelming me now. But it was just so phenomenal, the energy. And we're so excited to be able to host our first event and have you be instrumental and a speaker at this event, because we just, to embrace that and then give that power and to encourage any women that are co-owners with their husband or they own their own construction company. How can we benefit them to strengthen their capabilities, to strive?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we bonded over women in construction. And that was, I think it was a women in construction event where we first met face to face.
Oh, I just was like, in your class, so thrilled.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, that's like the common thread, right? Like, I love how we have all of these connections within our construction community here in Northern California. And it's just such a great opportunity to show women what their power is and what their voice can be and how they can be the change makers. So in my mind, I view the two things as going hand in hand, women in construction and contract control management, leveraging that. It's like, it's all part of that same overall idea of just leveling up and elevating the industry.
Absolutely. And a lot of businesses, usually a husband or a wife starts something and the husband or wife follows and is that rock. So if when Josh came to me and said, hey, let's start a construction company, I'm like, well, why not? We already have honeybees. We already have border collies. Why not start a construction company? You know what you're doing. You've done it your whole life. So you kind of gravitate, whether you have another profession or not, you're helping your partner. So to continue the education, to continue that strength and that capability is just, you promise that, you give that, and you reflect it. So it's easier to receive that information, apply it, and walk away with feeling more confident.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that it's having that effect. And I think certainly, we've done one series of 6 already. We've done the full set to completion one time. And the fact that almost every attendee that came to the first one kept coming back, I think really speaks to the fact that they must be finding value in it because it's, 2 hours. We give them lunch.
We feed you.
Yeah, we feed you. But it's a big time commitment. I mean, these people are all busy, right? Yeah. They're running businesses. They're operating businesses. They're trying to stay profitable. They got job sites to deal with. They got 1,000 phone calls coming in.
And it's so hard to stop a process and then go back to it.
Yeah, exactly.
But once they get there and they do it and they walk out, they're like, oh.
Yeah, absolutely. And plus, not to mention, I mean, the elephant in the room, right, that like has to be acknowledged is on paper, you see this advertisement for like a construction contracts class by a lawyer. Wow, I don't even want to go. Let's be honest, right? Like
it's overwhelming.
It sounds overwhelming. Yeah. It sounds boring AF. I don't know if we cuss on this podcast, but
we do.
Okay. It sounds overwhelming. It sounds boring as fuck. And it sounds like, why would I waste my time doing this when I can be doing things that move the ball in my business, right? And so I think one of the hurdles is getting people to realize, to step outside of those preconceived notions that they have just based on paper, what this sounds like it is.
Yes.
And really realize, and hopefully this format will help them see, I bring the same level of energy to absolutely everything I do.
Yes, you do.
And there is no falling asleep.
I can speak for that.
Thank you. And there is no falling asleep in one of my contracts classes.
Well, and we know Josh has ADHD. So, and he's, like you said, he's on it and you see the light bulb going off. And it's probably just the right amount of time where they can take the information, go back and think of any other questions or how they're going to apply it, and then bring that to the next class and say, hey, because you are an open book, you are extremely available for your students and for the exchanges themselves. So it's just phenomenal. So why, we don't have to go over every single class, but why did you choose the topics to talk about for our classes?
So when I was in this initial process of realizing like, I can help empower these contractors by showing them my method, I had to figure out a way to actually teach that, right? And in doing that,
they understand it too. Because you have your lawyer words.
Absolutely. Yes. And I do my best to make it easy to understand and take out all the legalese and just plain English. But the first step in the process was actually figuring out, okay, how am I going to teach this? And where do we really need to focus, right? It's not practical or really probably possible for me to just say to pick any random contractor who's interested enough in contracts to want to learn. It's not practical for me to say, okay, let's take your 34-page subcontract and let's go through it together line by line and I'll show you what to look for and how to read it. That's just not practical. It's not scalable. It's not repeatable. They're not going to retain it and they're not going to actually feel empowered, educated, and like they actually understand this process. It's just not reality.
Yeah.
So what I realized is there are actually 8 key contractual provisions that really are the ones that are game changers, deal makers and breakers that really move the ball, right? The ones where the risk is really more heavily weighted, the things that you can control, the things that you should be paying attention to, even if you don't have the power within the negotiation dynamics to actually get your red lines accepted, at least you understand the risks that you're taking so that you can better manage it, right? Yeah. And so I started there with the 8 key contractual provisions. And when I was sort of translating that into our Builders Exchange class session lineup, I realized that there was some duplication that wasn't necessarily going to be valuable in that format. And so I distilled it down, and that's how we ended up with our 6 classes. They're based off of 6 of the 8 key contractual provisions.
That makes sense. And that's a language that, if they might not understand it at first, they're definitely going to understand it when they leave all the classes. And again, you can pick and choose if a certain date doesn't work for you. Yep. And we're working on our library this year with recording your classes, so you can go back as a member and recap. You won't be able to interject with the questions like you can if you go live, but you can get some sense and knowledge. And if you have to replay it just to offer that, repetitive or so it helps with the confidence level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think I'm spoiling anything, but we have big plans, you and me. And so
always have big plans.
Right. And so if you know, for example, that you really want to come to the termination class, the class on termination clauses for convenience for, all of them, but you can't make it, you already have a scheduling conflict, we're going to keep doing these classes. Yes. So yes, it's wonderful that you'll have access to the recordings, but if you do want that live interactive experience because you've got questions, or my energy doesn't translate in the video the same way that it might in person, so you just don't think you can sit down in front of a computer for 2 hours.
It's some good energy.
Well, thank you.
It is some good energy. Well, and also too, with this, and then again, we did this series, and then you're taking the series again right now that we're offering, and then we're going to offer a continuing class, but it's going to be kind of more of an advanced class. So you can you take what you've learned and then you can apply it again to a deeper level.
Yes.
So I'm excited for that. And again, Josh has signed up for all of them.
Good.
Your number one star student is going to be there.
I love it. I think he makes the other people feel more comfortable too. Like if there's a new person in class and they're like, what is happening?
It's the ability to relate. And,
yes.
And that's where, like, when you do these women in construction, you do these events, you can relate. And even to your, and it's not just to women, when I say about the women in construction, this is where we met, but the men that have been mentors. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for my husband starting a company. And then, he thought I would want to be behind the computer. And I'm like, no, I want to join the field. Like, I want to be out there with you and I want to pound pavement. I want to learn, how because he would just look at this dirt and just like all these visuals. And I'm like, what do you see over there? And he's like, oh yeah, and to be able to see that through someone else's eyes, and to really appreciate a contractor, construction, owner, you have to delve into it. And it's like learning the compassion. You sing the GC, like, it just adds a different value. It adds a different capability of relating. And as when you do start a company, it can be straining on your marriage. It can be straining on your kids. So to be able to speak that same language, and it's neat to sit at tables with men that they're distraught that you can have the conversations you can have.
Yes.
And they're vibing with you, and and it's neat. It's just kind of like a secret language.
Yes.
And I love it. And I am extremely thankful for all the men mentors that I've had and my female mentors as I've been in this industry.
Absolutely.
So it's just neat. What else do we have to talk about? We got great things coming up with our women in construction.
Yes.
So are you thrilled on that?
I am. Should we talk about our March event since I'm speaking at it anyway?
We're going to be at Collins Electrical, and we're going to have our 2 speakers.
Yes.
Elizabeth is from Collins Electrical, and then Megan from
Shapiro. I know it's so hard to say. Nobody can pronounce it. Shapiro.
I have a cup at home. So we're just neat to be able to, I came with this idea, being a woman in construction, not having a women in construction committee and an event within San Joaquin County, to have something that brings us together, collaborative, but then also to appreciate where we came from.
Yes.
And being able to host it at the Collins Electrical. And, that was a family-based company that started and it's been around for so long and thrived. And again, it's a family unit. It really takes a family unit and it offers that to its employees. So we're excited to be able to host it there and then bring light to, to bring in more women into the trades, and then also to touch on any concerns or to educate anything to our members. And that will develop into classes, whether it's finance, whether it's the contract classes, just how do we embrace and bring that in to secure and keep our companies thriving in San Joaquin County or our partnering areas. What else? And then we're looking into eventually offering scholarships to the women in the trades currently and future workforce. And then also what other good stuff? We just, getting together and go hit some balls or do a charcuterie class or self-defense class. We just have a lot of great things that we're going to embark on this year on top of all of our other amazing events with the exchange. So I will divide myself in half.
I know you're going to have to.
That's my goal this year.
Right. But that's one of the things that I love about our particular Women in Construction committee is that, yes, obviously we do things that are centered on and support the industry, obviously, because that's the thing that brought us all together.
Yeah.
But we don't ignore the fact that we're also all just women and we just need that community and that camaraderie and that, companionship with each other. And so I love that we actually prioritize creating events that aren't just all construction forward all the time because it allows us to just...
We already have that.
Yeah, we can just chill into our space and be together and comfortable amongst ourselves. And I love that.
And appreciate each other for our worth. And just coming up with a thought. And then, of course, it ran away with the squirrels. Yeah. No, it's gone. It's gone. It's gone. It's with the butterflies. But to relate with, being in a community that you can relate with. And I think it would only enhance you to go back into your position and thrive. And then also, that's what it was, mentorship. So our last committee meeting, you have your stuff you have going on in your real world. And I know the world doesn't exist around only me, which is hard sometimes to figure that out. But I try to strive with that, was about mentorship and our responsibility as females or any leadership opportunities or positions that we need to continue, whether we realize it or not, that we are mentors, and how you break those ceilings without disrupting, but to combine, and it was neat to be able to have these conversations of women that have experienced a great mentor and then not so much, but how do we change that for the next generation? So how would you see yourself as a mentor to our next generation for any female that's like, trades are my passion and I'm going to become a lawyer?
That's so interesting because, first of all, it's so hard for me to think of myself as a mentor, right? Like,
let's try another one. Let's try this one.
Number 2? Okay.
I don't know. We're just tuning.
Yeah, we're going to.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of Inside the Exchange, hosted by Builders Exchange of San Joaquin. If you own a construction or service-based business here in San Joaquin County, we help businesses like you through networking, training, insurance, and connecting you with the best jobs available. Click the link below for more information. Now let's get back to the episode.
Ooh,
that's good.
So it's hard for me to kind of think of myself as a mentor, but it's constantly sort of like reinforced, right? So I was very surprised. I'm very active on LinkedIn, as you know. And I got a DM on LinkedIn.
I think I need to take a class from that. That's something I need to learn from you because I need to be more efficient on my LinkedIn page.
Yes.
But thanks for that recap. I need to.
Yes.
So sign me up for a class for that.
Yeah, for sure. I actually do have one. So we can talk about that later.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we can talk about that later. But I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn because of the amazing construction community that is on LinkedIn and the connections I've made and the community I've been able to build. Because of that, though, because I am so active on LinkedIn, I post almost every single day. I got a DM in my LinkedIn inbox from a woman in New York City. And she reached out and she said, hey, sorry to bother you. I can tell that you're obviously a pretty busy person. I work in construction and I'm thinking about becoming a construction attorney instead. I'm thinking about leaving the trades and going to law school. I would be grateful if you could just spare 20 minutes and have a quick phone call with me. And I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was so funny. I had my car at the shop for service and I was like in their waiting room, like waiting for it. And we're on a Zoom and she's like on the streets of New York sitting in a gutter and I'm in some weird waiting room in Toyota. It was so funny. But we hit it off immediately. She shared a lot of her story with me, which it was an amazing story. So common from what I'm sure you
So not realizing you're a mentor, you obviously opened a door that she could reach out to you.
Exactly, right? And I didn't, And so her story, just so many commonalities with like all of the women in the industry that I meet and have the fortunate opportunity to have those conversations with. So many commonalities. And we realized first, it lasted way longer than 20 minutes, spoiler. Yeah. I think we talked on her whole entire lunch hour. But we sort of realized through that conversation that becoming a construction lawyer wasn't actually what she wanted to do. And it's not an easy or cheap thing to do. And so like, not to discourage anybody, but like, if you don't know that's what you want to do, don't do it, right? Like if there's another path that will fulfill you, that's not that, then let's talk about that. And so we kind of talked it through and I gave her some ideas about some different career paths that meld her two interests with the construction law and being in the industry already, and gave her some resources and introduced her to some people. And it was a great conversation. We ended it with her saying, like, I'm glad we had this talk because now I can save myself $200,000 in student loan debt for law school. And I thought, wow, that's great. About a month later, she sent me an email, and we hadn't talked in the meantime. And she sent me an email and she said, like, I just wanted to reach out and thank you so much for the time, the conversation. I've left my job and I'm now on this path that we had identified and talked about. And I wouldn't have been able to do it if we hadn't had that conversation. I would have had no idea that that's the path that I really wanted to go down. So thank you so much. And I was just so touched by that because, again, I don't associate myself that way. I'm like, somebody's reaching out and wants my time. Sure, let's chat about it.
Yeah.
And that was it. But it was so much more than that for her. And then that became so much more for me too.
I know. That's neat. That's a neat story.
Yeah.
And that ability. So you have to be a person that presents some, capability of like that you're not off-putting. You have to be warm and intriguing and receptive. And they had to known that to reach out to you, or they just probably wouldn't have. Yeah. And then and some people are really good about jumping off the ledge and doing that without feeling any of that. But I'm sure that's something, I know that's a fact that's something you do. You're extremely, you're a lot. You're like a dynamite. I'm a force. You're a dynamite. You just have that ability to speak so we can understand it.
Oh, thank you.
And not feeling like you just talk at the level that you make it relatable.
Good. I'm glad. I do really try to do that because, again, that's one of those common barriers with attorneys, right?
Yeah.
Like people, it doesn't happen as often anymore because I've built these relationships now, but early on in relationships, people will often say like, I can't believe you're a lawyer once they actually get to know me, right? They're like, I didn't think that I would ever be able to like just talk to a lawyer or hang out with a lawyer or have fun with a lawyer.
You're on this pedestal of like just greatness.
I don't know where that comes from.
Like, I will take my grapes peeled.
I know, right? I'm like, could you just bring it to me, please? But I'm like, I'm just like, let's have let's have another drink and let's talk about your contract, man. It's like, let's do it.
Yes. And just the knowledge that you have is just, do you even remember the topics that we talked about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was? We went into so many, like your platform that you offer is just phenomenal. And I don't know. I was like, I could just learn from her for days. Like, I know there's so much that you could still just, even in the classes, like you probably have to walk away.
I do. Yeah, I really do. And like, I'm sure Josh has told you, some of our classes have gone over, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people are always free to leave, right? Yeah. They don't have to stay longer. You don't have to stay. You're not a prisoner. But some of my classes go longer especially because of the questions, you never can anticipate the questions people are going to have, right?
Yes. And they don't even know until you probably said some key word.
Exactly, right? And so I always am like, I got more to say about this. I've got more to say. And so I have to like rein it in, like, it's okay. Keep it. Okay. Share what you can. Let them digest this. Don't drown them with a hose.
So what is your passion with the trades besides marrying someone within the trades? It was something before it all, or was it just?
I think it's because that's really how I got my start in construction law. I never went to law school saying like, I want to do construction law. I didn't even think about that. Didn't know that was a thing. I went because I just always wanted to be a lawyer since I was a kid. And, I grew up in the Law and Order era. And so I was like, I want to be Jack McCoy's next female ADA because I didn't even recognize the sexist dynamic of that. Like, the actual DA is always a man and his ADA is always this like hot young girl. Yeah. Like, it's like, okay. So I was like, I'm going to be Jack McCoy's next ADA. So I pursued criminal law when I was in law school and for the first couple of years after I graduated. But I graduated law school in 2009 when the economy was in the complete shitter. And so all of the DA's offices and public defender's offices in the entire state of California, all 58 counties, were all on hiring freezes. So I was like, well, I got to figure out something else. So I knew I wanted to do courtroom stuff. And so the civil side of that is called litigation. That's, when you're in a courtroom fighting lawsuits. And so I got a job doing that. And then when I joined the firm that I'm at now, it had a different name back then because now I'm the other name on the wall.
Yes.
But back then it had a different name. So when I joined, then I was about a second or third year attorney, and they had a much smaller construction practice at the time, and they would use it as sort of like the starting ground for new lawyers. Okay. So when I was the new lawyer, they were like, okay, here's this small portfolio of construction defects litigation is basically what it was. And I was like, okay, but I got super lucky because the primary client that I was working with at the time hired a new general manager within a couple of months of when I started. So we both kind of took over at the same time. And we were like, well, neither one of us really know what our predecessors were doing. So this is an opportunity for us to build this to be what we want it to be.
Yes.
And I discovered that I absolutely love concrete. So like I got to go to World of Concrete in 2017 and it was like a highlight of my life.
Have you done concrete?
Personally, no.
Okay, so I have an
No.
appreciation for concrete contractors,
Okay.
but to actually pour a driveway and do concrete, oh goodness gracious! I don't suggest ever doing it in the summer, but
Ooh,
you know,
yeah.
I have a love for roofers too, because that's a brutal job.
Oh,
but
yeah,
concrete is no joke. They make it
No.
look so easy.
I know.
You push one side, I'm like, oh man, you know, everything's
know.
easier on YouTube. But I've done some driveways in Linda for one of the jobs at contractors that we worked for, and holy smokes, girl. I do have an appreciation for concrete contractors.
Totally. Mad respect for the guys actually doing the work.
Yes.
I had the benefit of looking at it from the other side. Right? So like I became obsessed with like mix ratios and like right, and like all of the things
the material the rebar, everything goes into it. Yeah.
All of whether it's a post-tension slab or two pour, right? Like all of that stuff. Anyway, so I've discovered that I love concrete, and I discovered that I actually loved this type of practice area. So I went to the partners of the firm at the time and I said, hey, I don't want to keep passing this on. Yeah. I'm quitting because I'm going to go become a concrete contractor. No, but I said, like, I don't want to keep passing this on. I want to own this book of business. I want to own this practice area, and I want to grow it.
Yeah.
And so obviously fast forward, and I now mostly have trade contractors as clients, probably because concrete is where I really got my start. I went from concrete to tile to framing to waterproofing. Like most of my clients, especially in those early formative days, were in the trades. Yeah. And so I kind of got learned how to swim in this pool by defending by representing the subs and always arguing their position on things.
Yes.
And so that's kind of really why I always say the trades will always have my heart, because that's where it started. They're my first love.
Now, how much change have you seen? And this could be a fully loaded question. Private works and public works, and then just how much have you seen the hiccups, or like you're saying, how you can try to perfect looking at the contracts, you can eliminate some problems down the line, but how much have you seen changed within just private works and, next question, public works over just the last 5 years?
So I would say within that time frame, honestly, the most significant changes are happening in January of 26.
Okay. So
So I've got a couple of LinkedIn posts about this. So you and anybody who's watching can go find them. Yeah. But we've got some changes coming in that we're capping retainage. So the cap that was always on public works is now going to be applied to most private projects. There are a few limited exceptions in there, but now we're going to have a retainage cap, which is a big change, and big for subcontractors, of course, and GCs. Really, nobody likes retainage except the owners. So that's one. And then we've also got some statutory changes to our change order procedures and how the policies and how change orders have to be dealt with now under law, as opposed to just whatever terms are in the contract. So
and that goes into consideration whether you're coming in as a lower bidder, assuming you can make up in change orders, or there's just no perfect job that you cannot have a change order. So the owners have to understand there is going to be change orders.
Yeah, exactly. And the changes in the law are really more about the timeliness of approving them, right? So like oftentimes the owners will sit on them for a long time.
Because you still have to pay out your laborers, you still have to pay out your materials, and who's gaining interest on that money that isn't going back to the business owners.
Exactly. Okay. And for that one, I mean, again, I may have a skewed perspective. GCs might disagree with me, but I think not, because in that one, it's really the owners that are exclusively benefiting from the status quo, right? They're the ones that get to hold that money, earn the interest on it, use it the way they need to use it, right? All the things. They're not, because once they pay the GC, then the GC is going to turn around and pay their trades if they're a good GC, and most of them are. So it's really the owners that have been benefiting. So GCs and subs alike will benefit from the change to the change order regulations that are coming in January. And then retainage, of course, will impact everybody as well. So those are honestly the biggest changes. We haven't seen a lot of legal changes in the last 5 years that will have as big of an impact as those two will. The bigger change that I've seen develop over time, just sort of as a custom, and I think a reaction to the high volume of construction defect claims, particularly in the tract housing community, has been a shift from insurance.
Okay.
Right.
Yes,
so
insurance is...
We used to mostly have general liability policies for all the trades in the GC, and everybody that got brought into a lawsuit would tender those claims to their individual general liability carriers. And so we'd have lawsuits with 25 parties and 25 carriers participating, insurance carriers participating. Well,
that's a lot. That's just a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
I don't even see it, but I could see it.
Yeah. You should have been at those mediations.
No,
those were fun. It was a good time.
I'll sit this and eat the popcorn on the side.
It was a good time. I did some table flipping in my day on those mediations, but So the change that
I would pay to see that.
Yeah, that was a good time. It was a good time. So the change that I think is a direct result of that, and I would be curious if others have a different opinion for the change in the industry, particularly insurance brokers and professionals. But I think as a direct response to that high volume of claims, the high payouts, and all of that stuff, there was a shift, a very noticeable, obvious shift, and now more projects are under wraps or OSIPs, which are owner-controlled insurance policies. So they're removing the private insurance sector from the equation, or at least all 25 carriers for every single trade contractor that's on the job. And they're consolidating it in one wrapped up insurance policy that applies to the project as a whole. And it's really changed the shape of how those types of claims have been litigated, handled, and settled. And the corollary to that is, although...
Is it geared towards protecting the owners, or is it really geared to protecting each scope at their work level, their performance, their material, like concrete versus what comes into scaffolding, what goes into, just the framing, or just different types? Like how do you take a general claim to secure an overall?
So I think the shift is good for the industry as a whole if you're lumping GCs and subs together and separating us from owners.
Okay.
Not necessarily because I think the change hurts the owners. I don't necessarily think it does. But what it does do is it eliminates the finger pointing at the construction level.
Okay.
Right?
That makes
sense. The subs are all going, GC, you didn't manage, right?
Yes.
You were responsible for inspecting my work and approving my work, and you signed off on it, so you've got some culpability here. Then the subs are even pointing the fingers at each other, right? Like the tile guy is saying, well, my tile only cracked because the concrete underneath it cracked.
Well, and there's no leadership and no direction. They are going to end up
exactly. So it used to be, that's why I said that you should have been in those mediations.
Yeah.
It used to be a clusterfuck of everybody just pointing the finger at everybody else, right? And the only one that's like in the peace zone is the owner. The owner sits back and goes like, well, you've got my cost of repair. I'll just wait until you can fill the bucket of money. And they're largely removed from the fighting, right? And so we're all just fighting with each other.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's a positive change for the industry, because it removes that element of us fighting against each other, because it's just one insurance policy representing all of us together against the claim.
Okay.
So I think that that's a good thing, personally.
And that might just change, obviously, the overall construction industry of feeling, because some subs might steer away from doing certain jobs.
The downside to it, right, and the reason why a trade contractor might not like it is because you do have to pay the premium up front. It gets deducted from, you don't physically write a check, but it gets deducted from your overall cost on the project. So you have to pay that regardless of whether a claim is made, and you still have to have your GL policy. So you're paying you're paying your premium for your GL policy, and now you also have to allocate funds to cover your participation in the wrap policy on this particular project. And then if a claim is made, you also will now have either a deductible or what's called an SIR, which is a self-insured retention. Very similar to a deductible. The differences don't matter. We talk about that in the class, though. The differences don't matter for the purposes of this conversation. But so it can cost a subcontractor or trade contractor a little bit more in the case that a claim is made versus their GL, because the considerations for the GL...
But the chances that something might not happen where you get paid and, are you sitting on a change?
And also, I think what I've seen, I would be curious to know actual statistics on this, but what I've seen is for projects that have a wrapper and OSIP, the GC is less likely to actually involve the trades at all. And they're more likely to just see if they can resolve it through warranty work or through a very quick, early, low-value settlement with the owners. And then they're not actually triggering the trades to pay their deductible. They're just handling it.
Okay.
More like a customer service situation or warranty claim. So that can benefit the subs too.
And that's, again, subs tend to be, well, depending on the scale and obviously the company, but if it's a smaller job, it's going to usually be a smaller sub. So they don't have all that capabilities and all the pockets and the time to deal with the office staff to handle all that. So I could see that simplifying or helping and concentrating those issues. What other things do you see? Do you ever have a contractor talk to you about whether they should stay in the private work sector and go into public works? Do you have any of that information and knowledge? Because that's kind of a fine line that I see whether they're going to join the exchange is, well, I don't really do public works. Well, it's not always about public works. There's a lot of factors that go into it. We obviously offer way more than just the plan room. But, if you had a subcontractor sitting on the line debating whether to go into private or public works, would you give any advice to that?
There's no blanket advice. I would give them advice, but it would be based off of their company, right? Their goals, their revenue, their insurability, their bondability, like all of those things, right? factor into.
Well, and maybe that's some knowledge where people I just want to get into public works. I want to get into, but they don't think about their bonding. They don't think about, because then if they go apply for the unions, they have to pay the prevailing wage. There's a lot of factors that go into that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would be able to guide them, but it would be so specific to the individual. Like I don't have like a blanket that I could just pop off right now. I will say I don't see as many trade contractors particularly entering into public works if they've only done private. I see it happen more regularly, more commonly, that either out of the gate from the jump, they're either doing both or they're only doing public works. But I don't see a lot of contractors who have a long history of doing private works wanting to make that jump, because it is a huge learning curve, regardless of all the other considerations. At a minimum, it's a big learning curve.
So I feel like we get a lot of phone calls with contractors that are private and they want to go into public works. And so I suggest all the classes, and I, just dive into that membership directory. Figure out your bonding, figure out your information, because it isn't just as simple, because they do look at the pay rate, they look at this, and the pay scale is different. The pay timeline is different, where, if private works, hopefully the turnaround time is faster, where when you're doing the public works, it has to go through all these entities, or however you say, and it might be a 90 day or 120 days. And that's going to take you so long to catch up.
Yep, absolutely. And then you don't have lien rights, right, on public works. And so if you're a private works contractor that's used to being able to protect yourself through lien rights, that's a big transition. And of course, we have the bond and all those other things. But I mean, you don't have your lien rights.
You just change.
That's just a mental shift of like shifting the thinking of, okay, my lien protects me, to how else am I going to protect myself? So it's just a big learning curve.
Yeah. Jumping into that pool. What's your number one yes for a contractor starting off, and your number one no for a contractor starting off? Like, jump that way, don't jump that way.
Boy, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
We can work up to, what's another good?
No, I like that one.
You like that one? Okay.
Yeah, I just need to give it.
Let's try this one.
Let me do number 3.
I just don't have my glasses on, so I can't. I know there was a blend involved in one of these.
I gotta get this.
We are at Juliet Winery in Walnut Grove.
Clarksburg.
Clarksburg.
Where are we? Neither of us live here. Clarksburg. I think we're in Clarksburg.
Juliet. I like that.
So let me ask a clarifying question. Are we talking about somebody that is like our standard example we were talking about earlier, which is so common in your neck of the woods, where it's like the field guy who is great at his trade and now he wants to start his own business? Or are we talking about somebody that's like, I've got a construction management degree from Sac State and I want to start a business? Because my answer might be different.
Well, maybe I need both answers.
Okay.
I need both scenarios. So yes, so somebody's been working for a company for a really long time. Their wife or their husband, they sit down at the table and say, let's really go out on our own. I think we can do it. Okay.
I love that. They're my favorite people, by the way. I love that demographic of construction company owners. They just have this level of grit that
maybe a little insanity, but
you have to make that choice, right? I mean, and I say that with love, like no shade. I say that with absolute love and adoration and respect. They're my favorite. It's going to sound self-serving, but I don't mean it. It's not. It really is my biggest do. My biggest do is talk to a knowledgeable construction attorney before you do anything else, because there are a lot of really good strategies that you can implement on day one out of the gate, from formation on, even down to choosing what type of entity you're going to form.
Okay, like an S corp
versus S corp versus C corp, all of that, right? That can have long-term implications that are harder to unwind, right? So you can always make the change later.
Also, it's like habit forming your the bad habits before they get established, and then you're cautious about moving forward because you're so set in those.
Exactly, because like, for example, let's take a trade contractor that knows they want to get into, they want to do residential tract housing. And they know they want to do some commercial projects. Maybe it's apartment buildings, but it's still going to be classified as commercial. Out of the gate, almost always, I have to give the asterisk because not legal advice, right? I can't give any legal advice. You're not engaging me as your attorney. But a lot of the time, for that demographic of company, it makes sense to really do some strategic formation out of the gate to isolate and separate out the risk, because residential tract housing is extremely high risk and your insurance premiums reflect that. Whereas commercial construction is lower risk and your insurance premiums reflect that. So there are some high level strategies where you can isolate the risk to decrease your insurance exposure, how much your deductibles are actually going to cost you. And that goes to workers' comp. It goes on and on and on, right? So the number one do for that demographic is talk to a knowledgeable construction or corporate attorney first, even before you start looking at what license to get, because you might want to make some decisions about a different kind of license depending on what your overall long-term vision and strategy is.
That makes sense.
So that's why my
So it's like
caveat was,
a
I know it sounds
workshop. I
self-serving.
wish we had, at the licensing board level where people are going to apply for their license and they can get that information.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the number one do, because again, it can have such long-term consequences that can really be the difference between how fast you're profitable in the new business. That's my number one do. My number one don't is don't assume that because you're good at your trade that you are good at running a business. Don't assume that you understand cash flow, particularly if you're a trade. You're going to get in trouble fast. You're going to get in trouble very, very fast. I'm not the solution to that problem.
Yeah.
I've got connections, but that's not a me thing. So that's not self-serving in any way, shape, or form. But you need to have somebody on your team, even if it's fractional, even if it's somebody external. But you've got to have somebody in your sphere, in your circle, on your team in some way that really understands the nuance of how to run a construction business and the finance side of it. So that's my number one don't. Don't assume that because you're good at your trade that you're also going to be good at running your construction business. You can be, and that's why I said you're my favorite demographic.
Yeah.
I've seen the most amount of success from those guys who did it the right way, as opposed to the 22-year-old that got his construction management degree from Sac State and decided to start a construction company. My experience, they tend to be a little bit less successful, I think, because they don't necessarily have that same grit and drive. So that's my number one do and don't for that demographic, the guys who've been doing it and now they want to do their own, they want to take control of their own destiny, be their own business. For the 22-year-olds that just graduated with their degree and they want to now start their own business, the do is probably the same, except for I'm actually going to underscore it even more, right? Because they're going to be less likely, I'm generalizing, I'm going to make so many enemies from this. What else is new? I always say the unpopular thing.
Because you're going to be hitting someone, touching someone that they don't even realize that, like, wow, you're right. Let me take a step back and evaluate.
Yeah. But the next thing that I'm about to say, I'm going to piss off some guys. I know it, but it's okay. It's what I do. Sorry, guys. That demographic is less likely to think that they need help. They're more likely to think that the one construction law class that they took as part of their construction management degree has them covered and they got it. Or the business law class that they took it.
And how much did they retain from that one class, let alone to apply it down the
as a sophomore at Sac State, right? So they're going to assume that they don't need it, that they can do it themselves, that they've got it covered, or they've got it handled, or they can call somebody, or they know a guy,
There's
or
no
their
offense
friend.
to men, but they don't really ask for help.
They never ask for help.
So
right?
that's what's hard when you,
Yeah. So my do is the same, but it's more emphatic. It's like, no, really, I mean it. Do this. You need to do this. So my do is the same. My don't for them is don't assume that everything that you learned at school is going to translate to actually being in the field and on the job. Don't assume that your degree is a better substitute for the actual boots on the ground experience, because you're going to get in a lot of trouble very quickly. Great, you're going to hire the guys that have the experience, but if you're the one,
but you can't apply it to real life. You can estimate all day long, but if you're not out in those trenches, you're not out in the weather, you're not out in the conditions, you're not with hitting a line that wasn't supposed to be marked because the A11 didn't show. I mean, there's so many factors that go into it, and yes, and that, that is something as a business owner and a contractor is, yes, of course, in a perfect world, material is going to be on site, material is going to be ordered. It's not on back order.
Yes, because everything is
and submittals aren't going to change.
Always.
And you could just change something from a 2-inch to a 4-inch. No, you have to, and there's so much that goes into it. And that's where the owners sometimes don't have that place at the table, and they don't, they're not always at those construction meetings and realize what the contractors are not just trying to pull out a change order they have to put up the work. They have to, someone's doing this work, someone's taking this time to put this together, and they're never going to see that paid forward because those are part of the business owner job aspects that you don't ever get paid for.
Yeah.
There's so much that goes in looking at the job, figuring out, and all the submittals and everything that goes into it. None of that ever pays out, know, and you have to be able to have that boots on the ground. And I think, I do see, and that even becomes a factor with the field. And I can say from experience, there is a different opinion to somebody that's sitting behind a computer. Nothing against that. That's their drive. And I push it, and we push construction management, but put yourself out in the field, start as a laborer, see how it's going out there, or either as an operator or a laborer, and see how the dynamics have to work. Because your team is so important out in the field, let alone the material, let alone the where you're working. There's so much that goes into it, and to have that grace and to have that knowledge and to be able to look at the different obstacles and not just make it surface and just really be able to apply it can make a job go so much more smoother than just like, well, no, this is how it's supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to be. No, this is, it should be this. It should be this. Well, no, that's not the real world.
Absolutely. And like, your field is your business, right? Like, you're not the one out there doing the work. Your field is doing the work.
And you can't devalue it.
Exactly. And so like, I see a lot of arrogance and cockiness, and you've got this young guy who's got his degree, and now he wants to treat his lead foreman like he knows more than his lead foreman who's been doing this for 30 years. Yes. And that's not going to go well for your relationship.
Well, just like women in construction, yes, we've been in construction for quite some time. And I don't have that data right now with me, but, we have been around. But how intense have we been allowed to be around in that area? Yeah. And we have learned from our mentors. And it's easy to say.
Yeah, exactly. And you piss off that foreman, you're not just losing your foreman. He's taking his crew with him. They're going to follow him. They're not staying with you.
No.
They don't even respect you yet.
No.
You haven't proven yourself yet.
You have to prove. Yeah. And even coming into a position in any field where you're younger and some of your cohorts are older. And I think, and you have to have a level of respect and to communicate with them and not make anyone feel like they're smaller than you. And, and hopefully the mentor themselves don't make you feel smaller. But if they do, there's a way that you could step back and, okay, I'm not going to take it personal. I've got to respect. And how do I speak your language so we can get along together? But I think having that understanding that they did live it. I mean, they have been following that excavator, that they've been teaching that labor to work with that excavator and to devalue that or to act like it's not important just because you have a degree or, your uncle or aunt or whatever owned a company and you've been doing this your whole life. I mean, you're still, it also plays into that you're always educating yourself.
Yeah.
And education is on so many different levels besides the classroom. So to have that is I guess I'm like visualizing like past jobs and past experiences, and it plays out in so many different aspects of any career, but definitely in construction, how can you make, and that goes kind of into your responsibility as a mentor.
Yes.
Say, hey, you went to college. Tell me what you learned, how I can help apply some of your learnings to my field work that I've done my whole life. And it could work better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about those relationships, right? Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, that's all construction is.
But not everybody has time for communication because you're kind of blow and go. But it's taking the time to say, okay, obviously you really just don't understand that. So take the time. And maybe there's some responsibility of whether they're the owner of the company, but of the GC to put their estimators or project managers are in the office, come from that construction man, put them out in the field.
Yeah.
And of course there's certain restrictions because if you're a laborer, depending when you get into the union aspect of it. But, but I would say when, we have our trades day and we're here with 500 students at Delta College and showing them the different abilities and it comes down to the parents and the counselors of whether they want their child just to go straight into the union or straight into the trades, or they want them to have that education piece because I feel like there's a huge value to that. That's up to them, however. But being able to say, well, why don't you work for someone part-time while you're doing that schooling or, find someone in construction and ask them and get that information. And that brings me to another random question and kind of theory of, I wonder how, like you're saying, the success rate for somebody that just has the education piece that wants to start a company, and then you have the boots in the ground that wants to start a company, but not everybody's meant to own a company. So it's finding out your partners. And I think that's what wraps us back to the exchanges themselves. And you get what you want from it. It's not just a plan room. It drives me nuts. And people are like, oh, I just don't use the plan room. Well, we're so much more than that. Get together, look at that directory, find someone in your trades, find a partner. Doesn't have to be a business partner, but find someone you can say, hey, like, what were your hard times? What were your great times? What did you do in your hard times? What did you do in your great times? And share that knowledge. Yes. It's a partnership. It's a brotherhood. It's a sisterhood. It's why Rotary's formed. It's you collaborate with like minds, and it shouldn't be looked at something like jealousy or insecurity or competition. It's just embrace it. And I know from experience, Josh values those relationships, and I see gravitates towards them. And at the crab feed, he's talking to so many different people, and they could be in the same trades or they can be in totally different trades, but they have some likeness, they have some knowledge of each other, and it just helps. And I've seen jobs where every trade is just against each other. And almost a GC either created it or just a crappy job timeline or weather caused it, or, and nobody likes underground. Nobody wants you to dig a big old trench by them, so we're not the favorite subcontractors, but, is how do you find similarities within each other so you can make it work? Because it works so much better when the trades can get together. And I remember our first job that we ever had, that was when we went union and we started working with Clark and Sullivan, and we were their sub for underground, and we did a bunch of work with Lincoln Unified. And we were able to sit down with all the subs, which we developed really great relationships with Cozart. And I was super green. Like my first construction meeting. But we exchanged phone numbers. We exchanged timelines. Like there was a general calendar, but then we were able to work around it so the trades could work together. And to me, it felt like it was so cohesive.
Yeah.
And that is maybe that's something where they're always on the treadmill with one leg off here and there. So they don't take the time to say, stop. We've got the definition of insanity is hitting that wall over and over again. Let's change this.
Yep.
This is not working. And every job can be so different. You have to kind of reevaluate all the time. And it is, you're always moving, and you think if you step off that treadmill for an hour and a half to take a class or 2 hours to do this, that you're slowing your progress. But in some ways you're coming back and you're just regenerate. And you can look at it in a different light, and it maybe doesn't feel so frustrating or so heavy.
Yeah.
That constant reminder. And, that's why I find, why do people join Rotaries? Why do people join the exchanges? Again, there's so many different values, but I think the collaboration of learning how to work together, speaking each other's language, and having that compassion for each other can make a job go so much smoother. And maybe, not to say we don't need lawyers, but maybe we won't need you as much.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe just going out for lunch and drinks.
Exactly.
To say, hey, we all get along now.
Yeah, I always tell my clients, like, I'd love to spend time with you. Let's just not do it in a lawsuit. Let's go out to lunch instead.
Yeah, and that's what's neat about offering your classes, so you can eliminate that and again give back that peace of mind that you can't, always ever guarantee.
Yes,
life is so short. Well, thank you so much for coming. Is there anything else you want to highlight that we could talk about? I know we have so many things you and I can talk for days.
I know, right? No, I think we've covered it all. I guess. I
guess we got to take a sip of our last one.
Yeah.
Cheers. Cheers to 2026.
Mm-hmm. Right around the corner. I guess I'll just plug where people can find me. So the firm website is radshap.com, radshap.com. Licensed to practice law in California, all courts and states in California. You can find me and all of the other things that I do at meganshapiro.com. And then I've got a whole slew of other websites that are linked from there. I have a construction conference that I host every year. It's going to be in Chicago in 26. So there's
when is that?
June 3rd through 5th. In Chicago. It's called Converge Construction Summit. So you can find that at convergeconstructionsummit.com. I'm taking speaker applications now as we speak. And everything else that I do, you can find on my website, meganshapiro.com. As I said, I post on LinkedIn almost every single day. I have a weekly newsletter. I share contract-related tips for construction companies.
Because you were just involved with Pacific Construction and went to Arizona.
I was, yeah.
And so part of Pacific Construction here is part of our Women in Construction Committee, and they were so excited to go and speak or go and learn with your class and you were speaking
and actually, it's interesting because that one wasn't even a contract class. That was my class that I usually offer for women in male-dominated industries. And so the Builder Up subcommittee of the ASA for Arizona is who brought me out there. And I have a 1-hour workshop called Make Your Case. And it's all about women finding their voice in difficult conversations so that they can be heard, they can be confident in approaching those conversations, and they get the outcomes that they want. So
once we're done with our first event, which I'm so excited and anticipating, March 2nd at Collins Electrical, to have our Women in Construction, our first Women in Construction event here there in San Joaquin County, since we're not technically here right now. We just had to choose a winery that would meet both of our paths today. But I'm just so excited to be able to offer that to our members to broaden those relationships. And I think that will be the next thing that we have. We'll have a workshop set up with that.
Happy to do it. It's a good time. Everybody really likes it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you again for coming on Inside the Exchange and being part of the Builders Exchange at San Joaquin, and then also becoming a great friend of mine. And I'm so extremely thankful for you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always a good time hanging out, and even better when we're at a beautiful winery with some wine. So thanks for having me.
On a Tuesday, right?
I know, right?
Well, thank you. Cheers.
Yay. Oh, wait. Oh, we're going back to number one. We gotta make sure we're matching. Okay.
Thank you for watching this episode of Inside the Exchange. For more information about becoming a member of Builders Exchange, click the link below. We'll see you in the next episode.